Sphinx can be easily configured. To do so, let's start from scratch. After the installation, the first time we run Sphinx, this should be the opening screen, an empty configuration. I will click Multi-View under Window Menu in order also to watch the controller manager, which currently is empty. The Sphinx configuration is very simple and very user-friendly. To perform most tasks and most configuration, we just need to go through the icons here from left to right. We start with searching for controllers. One of the Sphinx advantages is that we do not need to add controllers manually. We can do so, but we do not have to. Rather than that, we can just search for the controllers. We can connect the hardware to our PC and search the controllers over the Sphinx software. We click on the controller configuration icon here and then click search. There are two options to search for a controller. One is over the COM port, which is the RS-232 or the RS-485 connection, and the other one is over the TCP/IP, meaning the networking connection. We will example both and begin with connection over the COM port. First, we need to know through which COM port our PC is listening to the serial port, to the RS-232 port of that PC. In order to know this, we have to open the control panel, click System, and then go to Hardware, Device Manager. In it, we will see in Ports and COM to which COM port our PC is listening. If we have a real serial port in our PC, it will be usually COM number 1. However, if we do not have a real serial port in the PC and we are using a USB to serial port cable, then it might be another COM port. In this case, it's COM number 10. So we remember that we need to use COM number 10, and then we can go back to Sphinx and set here COM 10. Now we click search. The software immediately finds the controller which is listening, which is using the COM port number 10. We can click stop and then mark the controller. We see that the controller ID is number 1. This one is actually the value of the DIP switches, the 8 DIP switches which are at the top of the controller and are used as binary DIP switches, which allows us to set an ID number from 1 to 127 and give each controller a unique ID number. In this case, our controller is set to have ID number 1 with these 8 DIP switches. The model name is TC348, which means this is a controller. The digit 3 means this is a controller, a product of the controllers family. 4, the second digit, means the number of doors that this controller supports. And 8 means the number of readers which this controller supports. Meaning that this is a 4 doors controller with 8 readers, in and out reader for each door. Alternatively, Kicking has the TC344 controller, which is a 4 doors, 4 readers controller. We can see here the firmware version, which means the type of the version of the software which is inside the hardware, inside the MCU, inside the controller. And we can see again to which COM port this controller is related. Okay, Now we can click Save and Close, and we can see that the controller is already listed in the controller's configuration, and it's also being presented in the controller manager. Again, we see the details of the controller, the name, the firmware, whether it's online at the moment, its line ID, the host PC, the name of the PC that is now communicating with the controller, and the COM port. Okay, we can search again for other controllers. We can add other controllers manually, but this is something we rarely do with Sphinx, because Sphinx is providing us the advantage of just searching whatever controllers that are connected to the system now, and this is a big advantage. Rather than adding controllers manually, we just need to search them and the software finds them automatically. We can delete the controller. We can edit the details of the controller, meaning changing the ID number if we change the dip switches, or changing the model, the type of controller, or changing the name of the controller and COM port, and so on. We can change the host for the controller, meaning which PC is connected to the controller, and we can download the configuration from the controller from the software to the controller. Downloading means from the software to the controller. You can imagine the software resides above the controller, the PC is above the controller, and then therefore when sending configuration from software to controller, it means downloading. Let's search the controller over the IP address. But before we do that, we need to learn a few things about networking. Let's open the run application command line and run cmd. This will open a DOS window style where we can check our current networking settings. We type the command ipconfig, and we can see that right now our host, our PC IP address is this. The subnet mask is this one, and we can also see the default gateway, although in our case it's irrelevant. For the Sphinx software, we do not need to use the gateway unless we are using a network over the global. Our network is over the global network, meaning over the WAN. We need to pay attention to the class of the IP address. The class means the first three numbers. This means 192, 168, and 2. Our controllers must have the same class IP address, the IP address with the same class like the PC, like the host, meaning they can only be different and must be different with the last number. Instead of 100, it can be 101 or 105 or 53, but the other three remaining numbers must be the same like the IP address of the PC. Otherwise, the controller will not communicate with the PC. The same for the subnet mask. The controller's subnet mask must be the same like the PC subnet mask. Okay? Now that we know what is the class of our PC and the subnet mask, which means 192, 168, and 2, and 255, 255, and 255.0, we can go back to setting up the TCP/IP controller. We type exit and then go back to the search, to the controller configuration, and click search. We click the TCP/IP option and then click this button. we found here that there is a controller connected to the software using this IP address. We can change the IP address. We can set a different IP address by clicking Manual Configuration, and now we need to enter the parameters. For example, if you would like to have the IP address 105 instead of 53, then we need to make sure that the IP address of the controller will have the same class as the host IP, as the PC. If you remember, we saw this IP address in the command line in the DOS window, 192.168.2.100. So we give the controller the same class, same subnet, same mask subnet, yeah. Gateway can be 0, and the port can remain as the default value of 8000. Before we click OK, we must be sure that the two DIP switches which are on the controller and are responsible for setting up the TCP/IP or the IP address are configured properly. We refer to the two DIP switches S1 and S2. S1 should be on and S2 should be off. If S2 will not be off, then we will have a fixed IP address set by the factory. We click OK, and the parameter was set successfully. We can now search the controller, and we can find the controller at this IP address. The parameters of the controller are presented in the similar way like the previous one. Of course, the controller ID will be different. In this case, it will be number 2. And here we can see the IP address of the controller. We check mark the controller, save, and close. We can see that the controller is listed in the controller configuration. It's online, and it is also presented in the controller's manager under the IP address. So under this PC, we have in COM number 10 one controller, and in this IP address another controller. We can close and finish the search. Once we set the TCP/IP address, we need to turn the S1 DIP switch of the TCP/IP in all controllers to be off. This in order to protect from writing the existing IP address that we have just set.